Yeah, that's a great point and great question. Is that one of the reasons people struggle so much with chronic pain is because there's so many factors and variabilities that go into it. And what's crazy about it is those factors may cause you pain, but don't cause me any. And you're like, what the heck? That's why it's so elusive, because we're used to, one or two things of this is it and this is causing all of your issues. But that's a different model. That's more of a traumatic or infectious disease model, where you've got the criminal that you can find and take out, like Batman. And, not so much with chronic pain, but the lymphatic system. So it's a major system of the body, in my opinion, the most important and neglected system that nobody looks at in relationship to feeling better or performing better. So I'm going to tell you what the system is a part of, and then I'm going to give you an analogy to help people understand it, because I discovered a long time ago that if you're trying to explain something that's a new concept to somebody, tie it to something they are already familiar with, right? Okay. Like an analogy. So the lymphatic system is a significant player in your immune system, and it gets rid of things that are inside of your body that are trying to take you out of this earth that you don't want inside of you anymore, from bacteria, all types, to parasites, to viruses, fungus, cancer cells, because it kills cancer cells every day. And also, this is really important, your own metabolic and cellular waste products it gets rid of. Because if you don't get rid of those, you become sick as well, right? You become toxic to your own metabolic cellular waste. And it's a significant player in your cardiovascular system, your circulatory system, tied to heart health and tied to arteries and veins. So people that have hypoxia or blood flow issues or oxygen issues and pain because of poor oxygen and poor blood flow, you can't treat those systems separately. It doesn't exist, right? No system in the body ever works alone. It never gets injured alone. It never heals alone. There is no such thing as an isolated injury. There's no such thing as isolated healing. You have to look everywhere. So that's pretty big deal, man. Right. And I was like, why in the hell didn't somebody tell me how important this lymphatic system was when I was in school? And people ask me that all the time. If it's so important, why didn't I already know about it? I'm like, well, that's a really good question. Maybe you should ask the people that should have taught you by now. And then when I show them the techniques of how to help it, they go, that's it? Seriously? All I got to do? Yeah, it's just the awareness that it's a thing to take care of. So here's the analogy. There's actually, two of them we can do. Think about a fish tank, an aquarium. So my program is called Body Aquarium Lymphatic Mojo. And if you have an aquarium, hopefully you got fish in there, right? And the fish need to stay alive. Those are your cells, by the way. So think of your cells as fish. The cells in the fish need oxygen, right? And they need nutrients, and they need water that circulates, and that's the little filters you see up in the corner where all the bubbles are happening and the water circulates. And then the water looks great, and you have all these different chemicals to keep your pH well, and you can look to the fish tank and the fish are happy. But what happens if that fish tank filter system that you don't see, it's tucked underneath the cabinet out of sight, if that starts to become dysfunctional, you don't see changes immediately in the tank, right? But over time, over days, over weeks, this thick tank doesn't look so good. The water's a little bit murky, and I see stuff growing along the glass. What do you think that is? Well, those are toxins, man. That's bacteria and viruses and fungus. Same thing starts to grow inside of you when your filter system doesn't work well. And then all of a sudden you see the fish get stuff growing on their skin, right? And then meanwhile, you keep dumping food in the damn tank. And so you keep dumping food into the tank, and you're making the water even more toxic because the food you're putting on in, and the fish are swimming in what? Their own waste. because they pee and they poop in the tank, right? Well, guess what? That's what your cells do too. Your cells pee and poop all the time. It's called a metabolic Krebs cycle process known as recovery and regeneration, right? Or autophagy. And so you need to clear that waste out of your fish tank. And then if you ever look at a fish in a tank that is really struggling when there's low oxygen in the tank, you see the fish do this. I don't know if you're not on video, but I'm really big mouth. They're dying. They're slowly dying from hypoxia. Your cells do the same thing. Right? Sure. And so what I ask people is like, let me ask you a simple question. How would you ultimately help that tank? You could go in there and I could take the water out and I could clean it and I could put all new stuff in there and go to the store and buy all brand new fish. Looks great, right? That's the medical approach. Then what happens 2 weeks later?
Same story.
Same damn thing. Then I'm like, okay, well, why don't we think a little bit deeper? What would you really want to do first? Well, change the filter system. Make sure the filter system works well. Because if that filter system works well, I don't care what you do to the tank, it ain't working. Right? Now, it might not be the issue, but you better check to make sure that it's not. Because if it's not, well, then you put it aside, you're okay, check the box, the filter's not an issue. But if it is, it's one that if you neglect, no other therapy, in my opinion, is going to get you to where you could be. It'll help you a little bit, but it's going to keep coming back. And that's the proverbial question I've always wanted to ask. Why does stuff keep coming back? Well, maybe you don't have an environment that's conducive to healing because your body just can't do what it's trying to do.